All right, here you go.
Now I'm Kelley.
I'm Elaina.
And I'm Jaime. We don't have Gabe with us this week. He's at a conference, but if you hear something in the background, we do have a special guest, Kelley.
Yes, we have my 5-month-old child who has an ear infection, so he's home from daycare and just laying on the floor trying to be quiet.
Mm-hmm. So
he was grabbing the mic, so this is why he's on the floor.
Yeah, this is take 2. Hopefully this one's more successful than take 1. So we could start our podcast with
Nobody watched the State of the Union.
Nobody watched the State of the Union because
we're not masochists.
Yeah. No, I had a couple of friends who were like, we should live tweet it all together, and about 3 minutes in, they're all like, this was a really bad idea.
I had friends who made a drinking game of it because that's the kind of friends I have.
Yes.
Yeah, I just fear any drinking game you make with a Donald Trump speech would end very, very badly with like ER trips.
I was like, I have to go to work in the morning.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's an act of resistance to not listen and self-care.
Yes.
Suck it, Donnie.
Yeah. But he said lots of ridiculous things and, continued with his racist undertones and overtones and blatantism. Yes. Dog whistles and not so dog whistles. But one of the things that I kept seeing and I'm continuing to see is a story of a family that was there, the police officer, his wife, and their adopted infant child who
adopted.
Yes. And who came to their family because as a cop, he came across a homeless pregnant woman who had drug addiction issues. And she was desperate and didn't know what to do and needed a savior and was the whole story. And so he right then and right there was the hero who stepped in and said, I'll adopt your baby, and went home and convinced his wife they needed to adopt this baby. And now they have this baby. And
where is the woman in this story?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
what I'm hearing is that this man stole a child from somebody,
kind of, yeah,
and is being uplifted as a hero. Oh, good.
Yeah.
And we don't know the outcome of like the homeless, drug addicted woman at all.
No, like some stories I've said that they may have located her. She's still living, not in a home, still having issues. So yeah, he didn't like put her in treatment and help her have a better life. Like this is my problem with a lot of what we're talking about with the opiate addiction issue catastrophe we're having. I don't call it an epidemic because epidemics have to have a disease that can pass from one person to another. Drug addiction is not one of those. But
that's science, Jamie.
I know it's science, but I hate when people use epidemic wrong. It's one of my pet peeves. But is that, we need to help all these children. We need to help these babies who are being abandoned and blah. Like, why don't we help their families so they can all be successful together?
But then there won't be all these white babies for wealthy people to adopt.
Ooh, zing. You named it.
Well, and Kelley and I were talking about this earlier too. It's a novel thing, this whole idea of basically stealing people's children in the United States, but we've been doing it overseas for a very, very long time. Families are told that their child will, go get a better education in the United States and things like that. They aren't being told that they're signing away their parental rights to raise this child. They're supposed to like go get an education and come home and make things better. But that's not what's happening here. And
they never see their family again. They're just like absconded with by these white families in America.
Yeah, I'll try to find it. There was a CNN story actually about a woman. Say it was Nigeria that she adopted a little girl out of Nigeria and was told her family story. Her father had died and her mother just couldn't take care of her, and she was found abandoned somewhere, and she was older. So when she started to learn English, she started talking about this loving family and sister and mother and everything that she had at home. And it wasn't adding up to the story the adoption agency had told the family about her history. So they started looking into it and discovered, yes, that she had a loving mother at home, and she didn't think she had signed her child away to go live with this other family, and actually made the trip back and took the child back, and she's now living. And there was actually another young girl from the same village that had a similar story that was also returned to her family. And the sacrifice of those families to realize, hey, wait, this isn't right, and this shouldn't be my child. This child has a family and needs to go back to it is amazing. So we'll try to find that and put it in the show notes. But yeah, so that was the one piece of the State of the Union that really
uplifting
annoyed.
a cop for not doing his job and stealing somebody's child.
One of many things that was wrong. But so that was Tuesday night, right? So. But and then
Wednesday was much better.
Wednesday was kind of all over the place, actually.
That's true.
As our executive director, Kelley Copeland, tweeted, we had done 2 legislative hearings, a press conference, and a 45th anniversary Roe event, all before 2:00. So it was a busy day. It started with sponsor testimony on Senate Bill 28, which our frequent listeners will know is the ridiculous you have to bury or cremate fetal tissue bill. So Senator Yeager is the sponsor of it, and it's being heard in the House. Has made it all the way through the Senate. So it's in the House Health Committee now. He delivered his sponsor testimony, the same crap, just a different day, that Planned Parenthood is throwing babies into landfills, which isn't happening. It's been investigated in, like, the majority of states across this country, including our state, and nobody's found that they've done anything wrong.
By a very non-sympathetic AG.
Yes, I mean, he was so non-sympathetic that he had to make crap up in his press conference to make it sound like they were still doing something wrong, although they're following the same protocol that our state prisons do. So, whatever. So that was the first thing. State Representative Amelia Sykes was amazing, asked some really great questions. Republican, not state senator, state representative. Then
because we're in the House now.
Yes, Representative Mike Duffy, who's a Republican, actually asked some interesting questions too about why this is only fetal tissue from abortion and not miscarriage. If this is really about treating tissue with dignity, then why aren't we caring about all the tissue?
Right.
Of course, I didn't really have a good explanation for that other than, well, the hospitals are already doing the right thing, so we don't need to include them.
The hospitals are doing the same thing
Yes.
with Planned Parenthood. You're not really allowed to keep whatever.
Yeah. So there really wasn't any answer to that. He also, I think, because the real answer is we don't want to shut hospitals down, we just want to shut abortion clinics down. So this is a way we can shut abortion clinics down. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see if it gets a second hearing next week. We don't know right now whether it will or not. We haven't seen the method ban come back after its 2 hearings, so we'll see if that continues to be dead for a while.
Are we anticipating seeing it this month?
We thought it was going to happen a couple weeks ago, but it didn't. So we're still kind of waiting to see if it's going to or not.
Just hanging out.
Kind of at the mercy of whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it.
It's really interesting that these Republicans will ask these really hard-hitting questions in committee and like and you're like, okay, so you don't agree with this bill, but there's something going on behind the scenes that makes them vote for it anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, we saw it with, was it this bill? No, I think it was the method ban. No, it was this bill. It was this bill in the Senate. The committee chair didn't want to pass it. He said that he wanted to pass a constitutional bill. He agreed that this was probably unconstitutional, but then as the committee chair, he called the vote in committee and then he voted for the bill. So yeah.
Something's going on.
Yeah, well, it's that we don't have competitive legislative districts, so you've got to prove that you're the most conservative person possible to, beat out the Tea Party conservative that might challenge you from the right in a primary, because the only election you care about in your gerrymandered district is the primary. It's all gerrymandering. We talk about that a lot. Oh, we didn't put that on the agenda, but we should talk about it in a second.
Oh yeah.
And then
and we could talk about this morning's press conference.
Yeah, we could do that too. We're just flying by the seat of our pants because Gabe isn't here to tell us what to do.
Help, what are we doing? We need a man to guide us.
No, we just need somebody to write a script that includes everything. So we went from that to a very good thing, actually 2 very good things. So after that, Gabe and I split up, and Gabe went to a press conference with State Representatives Boyd and Bogg and State Senator Charlita Tavares, because they're introducing a paid family leave bill in Ohio.
Yay!
So when kids have fevers and can't go to daycare, people have time off so they can go and stay and do what they need to do to take care of their family.
Or, like parental leave when they give birth in the first place.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So, so that happened that morning, kind of in preparation for something next week, which is the anniversary of FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, actually being signed into law by President Bill Clinton.
Which is good. I mean, I have my issues with it, as I do with most legislation. The fact that it doesn't apply to companies with less than 50 employees and doesn't include actual paid leave. It just ensures that you can take off up to 12 weeks unpaid and make sure that you don't get fired for it.
Yes.
If your company has more than 50 employees within a 75-mile radius and you've worked 1,250 hours in a year, 1,250 hours in a year. So
yeah.
Did my research.
Yeah, I see that.
I did have a baby.
Yes. So
I have never worked for an organization that had more than 50 employees. I don't think I worked for more than one that had more than 25.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what people don't understand a lot of times, is this whole idea of small businesses and large businesses, and the vast majority of companies are small businesses, and the definition of actually the federal definition of small business is up to 200 employees, which I think is ridiculous.
Wow.
So they probably think they're doing pretty good, but
I'm sorry for my child for now.
Yes. Squitch has things to say about FMLA. He wishes that everybody had it too.
He's just screeching. He's learned that he could be a pterodactyl recently, which is awesome.
Which he is doing right now. So that happened, and at the same time that happened, I went upstairs to a hearing room on a fabulous bill that State Representative Nikki Antonio has been pushing since she got into the state legislature. A bill to stop housing, public accommodations, and employment discrimination against LGBT Ohioans. So
I guess first hearing in 9 years.
Yeah, it's the first time I had proponent testimony in 9 years.
Really?
So yes.
Wow.
Long time coming.
Yes. So that was fabulous. They had a lot of various people, business leaders, saying how we attract good people into the state. Nobody wants to live in a state that doesn't actually value its citizens. Shocker.
The same thing our med students say.
Yeah, pretty much. Talk about brain drain and all those things, and then some parents with kids. And I guess I missed it because I had to go to our row event, but I guess the last person who spoke was a young girl talking about her transition and how important it is for her growing up to live in a place where she can use the bathroom that matches her gender identity and not face other discrimination just based on who she is. So I guess that was very, very powerful from the folks that I heard talk. So
oh yeah, I mean, the bill got overwhelming support, lots of testimonies, right?
Yeah.
And then there are unheard stories. I had a family member call me last night and was just I'm at risk of losing my job because I'm gonna marry my partner next week, and her boss is threatening to fire her, and she has no protections over this. And that's where it's this is where policy meets real life, and this stuff matters.
Yeah. It is one of the legislators was talking about how you can get married in the morning, lose your job by noon, and be evicted from your apartment by 2 just for getting married. So yeah, it's nice that we have the right to get married, but when you're not protected from all these other bad things happening in a cascade following that, is there really a right to get married? It's actually very similar to abortion. Yeah. When you can't afford it and you can't access it and things like that, really is their right to have an abortion. So that was a really awesome hearing. And
we seem to do a lot of these laws in backwards. You should start with the anti-discrimination and then get the right to marry, and that's just not how it happens.
Well, I think it happened that way in a lot of the states that passed marriage equality before SCOTUS kind of fixed it for everyone. And I think that was kind of the plan, was if you work through the discrimination stuff, you can eventually get there. But I think the Supreme Court ruling kind of made it faster than a lot of folks ever believed that it would be. So
actually, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Because when I did my call. When I did my call to action at the Roe event yesterday, I mentioned how I didn't think that we were going to see marriage equality in my life. I'm not old. I'm 27. But it was just not something that was really on the radar even back in 2015. So yeah, this is definitely an interesting timeline.
Yeah.
And different than I think anybody was anticipating.
I mean, we're just here in Ohio. It was 2004 when we passed a ban on gay marriage on the ballot, and a short 13 years later, 12 years later, there we were with marriage equality. I don't think anybody ever guessed that 12 years would be the time frame on that.
So you have LGBTQ equality on one side and then abortion rights on the other side. It's like what's happening here? No one likes all of us.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting too when all the marriage equality stuff happened, and then all these public accommodation fights started on my religion should let me do this. And I was talking to a bunch of the folks who lead a lot of these LGBT organizations and saying how this whole religious discrimination piece is kind of the LGBT rights marriage equality fight of the Hyde Amendment. And how, back when the Hyde Amendment was passed, so public funding for abortion, basically, for those who may not know, I think a lot of our people were kind of like, well, it's such a small thing, and it won't really impact anything. Incorrect. So didn't fight it quite with, I think, the veracity that looking back on it, we probably should have. So, I was talking to a lot of those leaders, learn from our mistakes. This doesn't seem like a huge deal. Maybe, but it is a huge deal because it starts this cascade of, well, you let us do that, then will you let us do all these other 500 things, which is where we are today.
I mean, you made this point before when you talked to past LGBT organizations. Roe paved the way for a lot of LGBTQ equality, right to privacy and getting out of people's bedrooms.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence v. Texas quotes Roe versus Wade as a reason why sodomy should not be illegal. So
just a weird law. Just
you shouldn't be able to have sex because we say so.
No, specific types of sex.
Yeah, specific types of sex. So that was that. And then Elaina, since you were the one that did most of the work and I wasn't really there, we did the Row Together event.
Elaina did
5 other things.
Yes.
That's why. No, I mean it was all of us, right? We rode together. Oh, look at that. Yeah, no, it was a great event with Freedom of Choice Ohio. So it's a bunch of pro-choice organizations like NARAL, as well as Ohio Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, Planned Parenthood, bunch of women have options. I mean,
ACLU, National Coalition of Jewish Women, League of Women Rollers. There's a
powerhouse group, right? And we came together to celebrate, of course, the 45th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, but also do some legislative updates, understand the bills and barriers to abortion access. But really the core part of it was our training, helping people have heart-to-heart conversations about abortion care, because we're still struggling 45 years later, right? And so it's a lot of that good heart-to-heart culture change work, and really glad that we were able to use a curriculum by the NAF, the National Network of Abortion Funds,
led by the fabulous Stephanie Sherwood.
Oh, yes. She's phenomenal. And Rhiannon Childs also was supportive and helped with the training, and it was just a good time with 90 plus people at a church. I love it. A church of all places.
It was awesome.
For us to really dig in and understand, our values and beliefs about abortion, and not see that to the other side, because there's a lot of lies and misinformation, and for people to really just say, no, really, I value this, and this is why. Here's my experiences. I think it's important work that we need to be doing, and so we have a bunch of people fired up to do that, elevate the conversation, and do more advocacy. Good time.
Elaina, if they missed the Row Together event yesterday, what can they do to get involved next?
Oh,
I mean, next, there's lots of options, but what's the next FOCO event?
Yes, FOCO. Well, we have an advocacy day coming up, I believe, at April 10th.
Yes.
Woo, in Columbus Athenaeum. more ways for you to get connected and talk to your legislators. So look out for FOCO. They are on fire.
Well, and I think too that we'll kind of continue the storytelling trend that we started with the Row Together event and kind of help our folks share stories in a more legislative context about how these bills impact them and those kinds of things. So should be fabulous.
He's having a great time over here.
He's got lots to say. He has thoughts,
opinions about abortion bans.
Yes. But before we started broadcasting, he was blowing raspberries at abortion bans. So I think he has similar feelings to what we have too. But then on another more serious topic, press conference this morning. So this morning, State Representatives Teresa Fetter, Nikki Antonio, and Michelle Lepore-Hagan had signed a letter to Speaker of the House, Cliff Rosenberger, in response to some comments by State Representative Bill Seitz at a going away party roast of a former chief of staff for the House caucus, where he used disparaging terms to talk about female legislators and then joked about how a former colleague who had recently been forced to resign because he had sexually pursued a woman for, I think, almost a year when she continuously told him she was not interested in anything. They were talking about going away songs or something. And he said that the song for that one would be Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On. So completely inappropriate comments, joking about sexual harassment, I think on the day of or the day after their mandatory sexual harassment training. So obviously that sexual harassment training worked really well.
And then he fell down the stairs.
Yeah, and then he did fall down the stairs, and he left that, fell down the stairs and broke his ankle. So these three state reps were joined by State Representative Kathleen Clyde. She was also there for the press conference. But yeah, just talking about how these are a symptom of a larger problem, that this is a piece of basically the hostile work environment that is working on Capitol Square in Columbus. And how, he's not the only one that says these kinds of things. And it's created this whole culture of acceptance of these pieces. So it was an interesting press conference. You can find it on our Facebook because I shared the Facebook Live video of that. So that video should be on the NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio Facebook page. And we'll try to share the statement and things that they put out today as well. But it was really interesting. I think one of the pieces that hit me the hardest, one of the reporters asked, I can't remember which one it was, but one of the reporters asked how many people had signed this letter. And it's just those three legislators right now, but they're talking to more. But Nikki Antonio had a really kind of critical piece. She said, I don't care if it's just us right now. Because, of course, the ultimate goal is that this doesn't happen again. But we know that it most likely will happen again. And if it's just us three now, hopefully us three coming forward now on this issue will cause, when it does happen again, that person not to be silent and not feel like they will have political retribution and be able to come forward with their story and file the complaints and do the things.
Wasn't there also a bill introduced by Fetter for human trafficking?
Yes.
Yesterday or today?
She had sponsored testimony on that Tuesday because it was the day I was in Toledo.
And Representative Seitz asked if the age of consent mattered.
Yes.
With regards to rape, no.
It's rape.
It's not going to matter if this person happens to be 16 or older. It's still rape.
Yeah.
So he's not really got a great track record as far as anything related to women or feminine folks or anything related to sex and sexuality. Just not a good place. Not a good white man to have in the legislator. Old white man.
Well, he's against clean energy standards. I often say that the only thing that then Senator, but now Representative Seitz and I've agreed on is that he opposed Senate Bill 5. But of course not from the same places because we don't agree on why things happen. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely not
a friend of ours.
Not a friend. And the way that he questioned Rep Fetter on her bill, she actually brought that up in the press conference today too, as kind of a pattern of what kind of beliefs he has and those kinds of things. The Speaker of the House has, basically responded to all of the calls for him for Representative Seitz to resign with, he's apologized, he's written this open letter, and, we're going to create a task force to fix this.
It was like yesterday.
Yeah. So they're going to create a task force because more training is definitely going to work because, it happened within 48 hours of the last training.
I mean, if this is something that you did 10 years ago and there hasn't been a pattern of you doing it, like, I don't know, yesterday, then maybe there's like room for like growth and understanding, and like not necessarily that you have to step down, but like the same week after you are like breaking your ankle because you've made stupid comments, you are like interrogating somebody about the age of consent with regards to like human trafficking. You clearly don't get it, and you're not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to leave office. You old fart.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, he wasn't the only one that said ridiculously bad things at this thing. Representative Huffman also talked about, I can't remember in what he was saying, but he was referring to another female legislator and called her "See you next Tuesday." CUNT.
Yes.
And said, whoever it was, that she's a real "see you next Tuesday."
Haha, am I right? All this locker room talk that happens to be out in the open in a recordable way.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. And supposedly there were actually a couple of women there. And according to the press conference, I haven't seen where, but according to something that Rep. Fetter said at the press conference, one of them did feel uncomfortable enough to leave. And even Speaker Rosenberger said that the comments made him uncomfortable, but there was just so much going on at that time that he just didn't feel like it was the time and place to deal with it like immediately.
What is your job?
Howard.
Yeah. So, he recognized that what was being said wasn't good. And actually there's pictures out there of when Seitz was doing some of this, and the staffer whose going away party it is like sitting there because it's a roast. So he's like sitting there in front of everybody. And the look on this staffer's face is kind of like, what the heck is happening
Who
here?
in the legislature thought it was a good idea to host a roast?
That's a good question.
Like, I've been around enough comedians to know that like, that's not something you're going to do if you want it to be like that's not something you want recorded.
Yeah.
Especially as somebody like in a position of power.
Yeah.
With people that you represent.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever's idea that was, they need to be fired. And especially if it was a legislator.
Yeah, it was not the most brilliant idea any of these people have ever had. And Swish agrees.
Yeah.
Pterodactyl there agrees with our statements. But yeah, so I think that covers the week. And did we forget anything else? I know. It's like we did all this, and it's like,
it's only Thursday.
The update on Toledo stuff. Bill O'Neill's last day on the Supreme Court was Friday, but we still haven't seen anything out of the Supreme Court on the Toledo case. So,
but we have seen other cases that he ruled on. So the ruling that he made on the Toledo case is still valid.
Yes. So if they finished it and he signed off, they can still release it with his name. So.
Did he post saying that he'd gotten through all of the cases?
Yeah, he said he had a cryptic Facebook post about how they had they had 99 cases to get through when he, announced he was leaving, and now they're down to 0. So I don't know if that meant that they just decided not to decide some of them, and that's how they got through them all, or if they really decided all 99. Who knows? But so stay tuned. We still don't know when and where and how and whatever it's going to happen. So fun. At least with the U.S. Supreme Court, they usually release all the big ones like that last week of June. So you kind of know like this is when it's going to happen. But, Kelley, you want to talk about your upcoming events? Do you remember what they are?
Most of them.
Okay.
Next Wednesday, there's 2 events, one of which I will not be at. There's one here in Columbus. There's a 0-week screening. Is it at Gateway?
Yes.
At Gateway Film Center. What time? 7?
It actually starts at 5:30 with a networking thing. I think the film starts at 6 and goes from 6 to 7:30 with like a half-hour Q&A after.
Gotcha. But I will not be at that. I will be in Dayton for an organizing meeting with our friends at Planned Parenthood. Woo-hoo. It'll be at the Planned Parenthood Health Center in Dayton. So that'll be 6 to 8, I think. Mm-hmm. It's on the Facebook page.
Yes.
The next day, I will be in Cincinnati for a luncheon lobby. This is the first in a series, and I'm really excited about it. It's co-sponsored by the UC Women's Center and I think the African American Studies Department and maybe a few others that I don't know about yet.
Cool.
That'll be Representative Ingram, and lunch will be provided. And I think it might only be open to students, but it'll be fun, and I'm really excited.
Sounds very fun.
We've already booked our one for March. Now I just need to book April.
Yay!
Well done.
Yeah.
And also on Wednesday, to break in there, Thursday, the Row Together Cleveland event is Thursday night at 6:30 at Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland as well.
Oh, and this coming Sunday, I have my next crafternoon. So if you want to hang out and craft, it'll be at Holy Craft from 1 to 3 this month instead of 3 to 5. So
yay! Is there a specific craft this month?
Yarn graffiti.
Yarn graffiti.
Yeah.
Fun.
Come if that piques your interest. That means you need to come and learn more.
Oh
No, it's okay.
Squish is done with podcasting. And then the other thing coming up next week, there is a phone bank in Toledo. You can email us at volunteer@prochoiceohio.org for all the information on that event in Toledo as well. So with that, I think we are done.
Yeah.
So
next week on the podcast will probably be Nikki Winkleman and Amber Falter with Stand Up for Choice.
Yay, more comedians.
Yes, Nikki Winkleman is going to be 38 weeks pregnant at the Stand Up for Choice show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Well, we'll see everybody next week. Bye.